There is a specific kind of silence that settles into a marriage after 30 years. It's not a hostile silence, but it's heavy, like a thick layer of dust on a shelf that no one has touched in decades. On the outside, I am the picture of stability, a husband of 3 decades, a man who has built a life, a home, and a reputation. But inside, there was a ghost. I had become a serial cheater, not because I hated my wife, but because I had become invisible to myself. I missed the version of me that was dangerous, the version that was desired, the version that still had a pulse.
That hunger is what led me to Ashley Madison. For over a year, I lived a double life in the shadows of the internet. I was a voyeur, a ghost in the machine, scrolling through profiles while the rest of the world slept. I would watch the digital parade of lonely hearts and restless souls, fantasizing about a connection that felt like more than just a transaction. I wasn't looking for just anyone. I was looking for a spark that could burn through the fog of my routine. Then came Charlie.
That isn't her real name, of course, but in the world of the not-so-innocent, names are just another layer of the mask. She was the one who broke the ice, and the moment I opened her profile, I knew I was in trouble. Most men are intimidated by height, but for me, it was a siren song. She was 6 feet tall, a towering, statuesque presence who explicitly stated that she required her men to be at least her height. Standing at 6'2", I felt a primitive surge of adrenaline. All my life, I had gravitated towards smaller women. My wife is 5'9", which is tall by most standards, but my history was a trail of women who barely reached my shoulder. 5'2", 5'4", the kind of women you look down upon to protect. But the idea of a woman who stood eye to eye with me, that was a challenge my ego couldn't ignore.
We began to chat, and the connection was like a live wire. There was no awkwardness, no small talk about the weather or our jobs. We dove straight into the deep end. I flirted with the idea of her height, telling her how intriguing a tall woman was, and she gave it right back. For several nights I sat in the darkness of my study, the blue light of the phone screen reflecting in my eyes as we built a world of words. I spent hours imagining a faceless, 6-foot-tall beauty, our bodies entwined, the sheer physics of 2 tall people finally finding their match. The discussions grew heated, darker, and more intense. I wanted to see her. I needed to know if the reality matched the fire in my mind.
Fast forward through the digital foreplay, and it was time to meet. I asked for a photo, just a preview to steady my nerves. When the image finally loaded, high cheekbones that gave her an air of royalty, a cute, slightly upturned nose, and a smile that felt like a warm sun on a cold day. I'll be honest, I spent a long time that night with her photo open, letting my imagination run wild, my body reacting to the mere sight of her. I couldn't wait another day.
The setting was a local Mexican restaurant, a place where the air was thick with the scent of roasted peppers, lime, and the hum of 100 different conversations. I arrived early, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I found 2 stools at the bar, positioned directly in front of the frozen margarita machines. I sat there, watching the neon-colored slush churn in those big plastic tubs, syrupy blue and red goodness swirling in a never-ending cycle. I texted her, "I'm at the bar, right in front of the margarita machines." She replied almost instantly, laughing, thinking I was joking about such a cliché spot. 10 minutes later, the door swung open, and the world seemed to tilt on its axis.
I knew it was her the second she stepped into the light. She was everything the photo promised, but in 3 dimensions, she was overwhelming. She carried herself with a grace that only a tall woman can possess, a mixture of confidence and hidden vulnerability. As she walked toward me, I couldn't help but wonder why a woman like this was here. Why her husband didn't give her every ounce of his soul every single day is a mystery that still baffles me. I stood up, feeling our heights align, and greeted her with an innocent side hug. But the second my arm touched the small of her back, I felt a jolt of pure electricity. We sat on those bar stools for an hour and a half, but it felt like 5 minutes.
We had a couple of drinks, some chips and salsa, and a conversation that flowed as naturally as if we had known each other for decades. I was on. I was charming. I was witty, and her laughter was the most intoxicating thing I had heard in years. We flirted with our eyes, our knees brushing against each other under the bar, the tension building until it was a physical weight between us. When it was finally time to leave, the restaurant had begun to empty, but the fire between us was just reaching its peak. I walked her out to her car, the cool night air hitting us as we stepped into the parking lot. The yellow glow of the streetlights cast long, dramatic shadows against the pavement. We stopped at her driver's side door, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. The polite part of the evening was over. I looked at her Haseen face, leaned in just a fraction, and whispered, "Can I kiss you?"
Yes hadn't even fully left her lips before our mouths collided. It wasn't a tentative kiss. It was a hungry, desperate collision of two people who had been starved for a real connection. For the next 20 minutes, maybe more, I lost track of time. The world outside that parking lot ceased to exist. Our tongues danced in a feverish rhythm, my hands wandering up the length of her back, pulling her into me, feeling the incredible curves of her body. I wanted more. I wanted to push her into the car, to feel her skin against mine, to lose myself in the heat of her until the sun came up. She felt it too. She would later confess that she was just as close to the edge as I was, her breath hitching every time my hands moved over her. But we weren't teenagers in a movie. We were adults with lives, spouses, and responsibilities. It would have been premature to act like kids after a prom, no matter how much our bodies screamed for it. With a massive effort of will, we finally pulled apart, both of us breathless, both of us shaken by the intensity of what had just happened. That first date wasn't just a meeting. It was the beginning of a transformation. It was the spark of a sexy, complicated, and deeply loving relationship that remains just as special today as it was in the glow of those margarita machines. Driving home that night, the taste of her still on my lips, I knew I had crossed a line, and for the first time in 30 years, I didn't want to go back.